Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into the incredibly powerful memoir of Hyppolite Ntigurirwa, a survivor of the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi in Rwanda. This is a story that, I have to tell you, starts in a world of childhood innocence, gets plunged into just unimaginable darkness, and then somehow finds a path back to the light. It's been called a testament to the strength of the human heart, a journey of just profound resilience. And it all begins in a small, remote village, a place that many Rwandans would call the other side of the forest.
So before his world was turned completely upside down, 7-year-old Hyppolite, or Hyppo as everyone knew him, lived a life that was, sure, defined by poverty, but it was also filled with the warmth of family and these really tight community bonds.
I mean, just picture this. His home was a hut his father built with his own 2 hands. His dad was a woodcutter with a lame foot, but he was a man who dreamed big, always singing about a better future. And his mom, a farm worker who had actually once trained to be a nun, she worked every single hour of the day just to feed their huge family.
And this really gives you a sense of his life, you know? It was this relentless cycle of chores and hardship. I'm talking constant hunger, painful fleas burrowing into his bare feet, these long, long walks for water. But at the exact same time, it was full of the simple joys of being a kid, playing football with his friends and listening to his father's songs. It was the only world he knew.
And then, on April 7th, 1994, everything just shattered. The radio, this thing that brought them news and music, it became a weapon. It started broadcasting this chilling message, "Kill all Tutsis." Suddenly, they weren't neighbors anymore. They were cockroaches.
And the speed of that change is just terrifying to think about. The very same man who just days before were drinking banana beer with his father were now hunting him with machetes. The parents of the kids he played football with were now shouting for his death. In this world that had flipped on its head, his own godparents, they became his only hope for a hiding place.
So while his father was hiding in a nearby ditch, Hyppo and his older brother Prodes were crammed into this beer-making bowl, the umuvure. Can you even imagine being trapped in that tiny, airless space, having to be completely silent as the killers walked right into the room?
And that's the thing, these weren't faceless monsters. As he says here, they were familiar voices. The killers actually sat on the very bowl the boys were hiding under, just casually reading from a list of neighbors they'd already murdered and another list of those they were still hunting, which included Hyppo's entire family.
Eventually, the family fled, thinking they'd find safety in a church. But that sanctuary, it became a slaughterhouse. This was the moment that Hyppo's journey went from hiding in fear to witnessing pure, unadulterated hell.
Separated from his family in the chaos of that church massacre, Hyppo was suddenly, terrifyingly, all alone. He had no one. He had to rely on his own 7-year-old instincts to somehow navigate a world that had just become a landscape of death.
He survived by basically becoming a ghost. And from the cover of some bushes, he witnessed the murder of his own father. Hearing that familiar sound of his dad's cough give away his hiding spot to the hunters. I mean, every single moment brought a new, unspeakable horror. To escape patrols, he would literally burrow under piles of corpses. To survive his thirst, he drank water from a river that was red with blood. He watched from the ruins of his own home as family and friends were murdered by a bonfire. The trauma was just relentless. And in the filth and disease of the Nyarushishi refugee camp, surrounded by thousands of dying people, a 7-year-old Hyppo actually started to believe the propaganda. As he says here, he accepted this nightmare as what he deserved, a punishment for just being born.
Then in July, the Rwandan Patriotic Army arrived, and it brought an end to the 100 days of slaughter. But for the survivors, the journey home wasn't a celebration. It was a return to a world of ghosts and complete ruins. You can really see the progression here. It's a stark 100-day overview of how his entire world was just systematically dismantled. It goes from hiding in his village to the massacre to the hell of the refugee camp, and finally to a liberation that allowed the long, slow process of return to even begin.
He was just one of 8,000 souls crammed into that Nyarushishi camp, a place he describes simply as hell. He survived starvation, dysentery, constant attacks, all before soldiers finally secured the area and made it safe enough to go home.
But returning home didn't mean the pain was over, not even close. Their house was gone, and the land itself was just scarred with the evidence of the slaughter. But as his family slowly, miraculously, began to find each other again, Hyppo found new role models. the soldiers guarding the village. They gave him protection, food, and one crucial piece of advice: go to school.
At school, though, the trauma wasn't gone. It had just turned inward, and it came out as this complete and profound silence. And what's amazing is that he was excelling in his classes. He was even top of his class. But Hyppo just couldn't speak. He was trapped in this prison of memory, where everyday things, like a red pen or the sound of chanting, could trigger all of that horror all over again.
These were the first words he finally managed to say about his feelings. He said them to a compassionate teacher, a Hutu man who noticed his star pupil's grades were slipping and just simply asked him why he was always so quiet. And this, right here, is where that one conversation builds into something truly remarkable. The teacher's idea was so simple but so transformative. Start a theater club. It created a space where Hyppo could finally tell his story, not as a victim, but as a creator, giving him a stage to actually process his trauma. The effect was absolutely electric. On that stage, Hyppo didn't just find his own voice. He gave his entire community, survivors and children of perpetrators alike, permission to feel, to laugh, and to finally start talking about the unspeakable. It's just an incredible reminder that through art, a story of unimaginable pain can be transformed into a bridge for healing. And it really leaves you wondering, what happens when we finally give someone the permission to tell their story?